Commander Xyloth stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, his three eyes fixed on the blue planet rotating slowly on the main display. His skin, naturally luminescent like all members of the luminary species, pulsed with an anxious yellow glow. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, their own bioluminescence casting a warm light throughout the command center. "Scan complete, Commander," announced Navigator Preth, her voice carrying the melodic quality of their people. "The planet matches all criteria for Class 7 civilization. They call themselves humans, and their world is named Earth." Xyloth nodded, his elongated fingers drumming against the smooth console before him. The Luminary had traveled across 17 star systems in their quest for alliance partners. Their homeworld, Luxara, basked in the light of three suns, creating an eternal day that had shaped every aspect of their evolution. The concept of extended darkness was not just foreign to them, but deeply unsettling, triggering primal fears coded into their very genetics. "Prepare first contact protocols," Xyloth ordered. "Establish communication channels." Within moments, the ship's advanced translation systems connected with Earth's global network. The face of a human appeared on the screen, a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore what the database identified as a military uniform. "This is General Patricia Hayes of the United Earth Defense Coalition," the human said. "We've been tracking your vessel since you entered our solar system. State your intentions." "Greetings, General Hayes," Xyloth replied, his translator rendering his words into the human language called English. "I am Commander Xyloth of the Luminary Collective. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic relations and potential alliance. Our scans indicate your civilization has achieved impressive technological advancement." The general studied him for a moment. "We're willing to discuss diplomatic relations. However, any alliance would require trust built over time. We'd like to invite a delegation to meet with our representatives." "We accept your invitation," Xyloth said, relief washing through him. "Another successful first contact. Where and when shall we meet?" "Our primary diplomatic facility is located in Geneva, Switzerland. We can accommodate your delegation tomorrow at 1400 hours local time." Xyloth consulted his navigational data. The meeting time corresponded to what humans called afternoon, when their singular sun would be high in the sky. "Perfect. We shall be there." The next day, Xyloth led a delegation of 5 Luminari down to Earth's surface. Their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, and Xyloth marveled at the planet's beauty. Vast oceans, green continents, and white clouds created a tapestry of color unlike anything on Luxara. As they approached Geneva, the sun hung bright in the sky, and Xyloth felt comfortable despite being far from home. The diplomatic facility was impressive, a modern structure of glass and steel. Human guards, armed but professional, escorted them inside. General Hayes met them in a large conference room, accompanied by several other humans representing different nations and organizations. "Welcome to Earth," Hayes said, gesturing for them to sit at a long table. "We've prepared accommodations for your comfort. I understand your species requires high light levels?" "You are well informed," Xyloth said, pleased. "Yes, we evolved under the light of 3 suns. Darkness is something we find quite disturbing." One of the other humans, a man introduced as Dr. Robert Chen, leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating. On Earth, we experience regular cycles of day and night due to our planet's rotation. How do your people cope with darkness?" "We rarely encounter it," Xyloth explained. "Our ships maintain constant illumination, and Luxara itself knows no night. The brief shadows cast by our moons during their rare alignments are the closest we come to darkness, and even those are cause for concern among our population." The humans exchanged glances that Xyloth couldn't quite interpret. General Hayes cleared her throat. "I see. That's quite different from human experience. We'll make sure your quarters here are properly lit." Now, shall we discuss the potential terms of cooperation? The meeting progressed well over the next several hours. The luminary offered advanced energy technology and medical knowledge, while the humans presented impressive developments in material science and artificial intelligence. Xyloth found himself optimistic about the partnership. As the discussions continued, Xyloth noticed a light streaming through the windows had changed color, becoming more orange and red. Dr. Chen noticed his attention. "The sun is setting," the doctor explained. "Within an hour, it will be night here. I hope that won't be too uncomfortable for you." Xyloth felt a ripple of unease pass through his body, his bioluminescence flickering briefly. "Night? How long does it last?" "In Geneva, at this time of year, about 10 hours, Hayes said. "But don't worry, we have excellent artificial lighting throughout the facility. You'll be perfectly safe." 10 hours. Xyloth tried to imagine such an extended period without natural light and found the thought disturbing. But he was a commander, a representative of his people. He would not show weakness. "That will be acceptable. We appreciate your consideration." As darkness fell outside, the humans activated lights throughout the building. They were bright enough, Xyloth supposed, but they lacked the full spectrum warmth of natural starlight. The windows, which had shown a bright world just hours before, now reflected only blackness, punctuated by small points of artificial illumination from the city. The meeting concluded for the day, and the luminari were shown to their quarters. The rooms were spacious and well-appointed, with powerful lights installed in every corner. Yet something felt wrong. Xyloth could see darkness pressing against the windows, vast and encompassing. He instructed his team to keep their personal luminescence at maximum and tried to rest. Sleep did not come easily. Every few minutes, Xyloth found himself checking the window, seeing only the void beyond. He understood intellectually that night was simply the absence of their sun as Earth rotated, but his evolutionary instinct screamed, danger. On Luxara, darkness meant something was terribly wrong, that the suns had been extinguished, that death was near. A knock at his door brought Xyloth to his feet. He found Navigator Preth standing in the hallway, her own luminescence pulsing with distress. "Commander, I cannot rest," she admitted. "The darkness outside, it feels wrong. Some of the crew are requesting permission to return to the ship." Xyloth considered this. They couldn't show such weakness to potential allies. "No, we must endure. The humans live with this every day. If they can survive it, so can we." "The humans are not like us," Preth said quietly. "Perhaps they evolved differently. Perhaps darkness does not affect them as it affects us." It was a valid point. Xyloth made a note to research human evolution more thoroughly. "Return to your quarters, Navigator. Morning will come. The humans assured us of this." Preth bowed and left, but Xyloth could see she was not comforted. He returned to his room and forced himself to remain calm, counting the minutes until sunrise. When dawn finally broke, Xyloth felt overwhelming relief. The darkness receded, replaced by the golden light of Earth's sun. It was only a single star, but in that moment it felt glorious. He gathered his delegation for breakfast, noting that they all looked tired and stressed. General Hayes joined them in the dining area, looking refreshed and energetic. "Good morning. I trust you slept well?" Xyloth chose his words carefully. "The night was an interesting experience. We are not accustomed to such extended darkness." "I can imagine," Hayes said, her tone sympathetic, "but you handled it well. Shall we continue our discussions today?" The second day of talks went smoothly, and by afternoon, both sides had drafted a preliminary agreement for technological and cultural exchange. Xyloth was pleased with the progress, though he dreaded the coming of another night. As sunset approached, Dr. Chen asked if they could demonstrate some of Earth's nocturnal wildlife through a video presentation. "Many species on our planet are actually more active at night," he explained. "They've evolved to thrive in darkness." The video showed creatures called owls hunting in near-total darkness. Their eyes adapted to see with minimal light. Bats used sound instead of sight to navigate through pitch-black caves. Deep-sea creatures lived in an eternal night at the bottom of the oceans, creating their own light through bioluminescence, not unlike the luminari themselves. Remarkable, Xyloth admitted, though watching the footage made him uncomfortable. Your planet's biodiversity is impressive. Such adaptation to darkness would be unnecessary on Luxara. Adaptation is humanity's greatest strength, Hayes said. We've learned to thrive in every environment Earth offers, from the brightest deserts to the darkest depths. Darkness isn't our enemy, it's just another condition to master. That night was easier than the first, though only marginally. Xyloth kept himself busy reviewing documents and watching more educational videos about Earth. He learned that humans actually require darkness to sleep properly, that their bodies produce certain hormones only in the absence of light. It was so alien to luminary physiology that he had trouble believing it. On the third day, as they finalized the alliance agreement, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. General Hayes received an urgent communication through her earpiece, her expression hardening. "Commander Xyloth, we have a situation," she said grimly. "A hostile force has entered our solar system. They're not responding to hails, and they're on an intercept course with Earth." Xyloth felt his luminescence pulse with alarm. "Hostile? What species?" "We're analyzing their ship signatures now," Hayes replied, working quickly at a portable console. "They match descriptions of the Krell Dominion from your database." The Krell. Xyloth's three eyes widened. The Krell were raiders and conquerors, a species that had terrorized multiple systems. The Luminari had managed to avoid direct conflict with them only through careful diplomacy and by not being worth the effort to attack. Earth, rich in resources and strategically located, would not be so fortunate. "How long until they arrive?" Xyloth asked. 18 hours. They'll reach Earth orbit tomorrow morning." Xyloth made a decision. "The celestial dawn is at your disposal, General. We may not be warriors, but we will not abandon potential allies in their time of need." Hayes smiled grimly. "We appreciate that, Commander. However, I should inform you that we've been preparing for the possibility of hostile contact for decades. We have defenses." "Against the Krell?" Xyloth shook his head. "General, with respect, they field a battle fleet that has conquered 12 worlds. Unless you have weapons technology far beyond what you've shared, I fear Earth will face the same fate." "We have something better than advanced weapons," Hayes said cryptically. "We have home field advantage. Dr. Chen, please show our guests to the Military Command Center. It's time they saw what humanity does when threatened." The command center was buried deep underground, accessible only through heavily secured elevators. As they descended, Xyloth noted the layers upon layers of fortification. The humans had built a fortress beneath their diplomatic facility. The command center itself buzzed with activity. Dozens of humans worked at sophisticated consoles, coordinating what appeared to be a global defense network. Massive screens display the approaching Krell fleet, 6 heavy cruisers, and twice as many support vessels. "Our satellites detected them 3 hours ago," explained a military officer named Colonel James Mitchell. "They're not being subtle. These ships are configured for orbital bombardment and ground assault." Xyloth studied the display, his expertise in naval tactics analyzing the formation. They plan to establish orbit, destroy any resistance from space, then land ground forces. Standard Krell conquest protocol. "General Hayes, I must be honest. My ship and crew will fight alongside you, but the odds are not favorable." "Then it's fortunate we're not planning a conventional battle," Hayes said. She turned to Mitchell. "Colonel, what's the timeline?" "They'll achieve Earth orbit at approximately 0800 hours tomorrow. Perfect timing, actually." "Perfect timing for what?" Preth asked nervously. Hayes smiled, and something in that expression made Xyloth's skin prickle. It was the smile of a predator. "For sunrise. You see, Commander, the Krell evolved on a world similar to yours. Multiple suns, very little darkness. They share your species' aversion to it. But that would make them even more dangerous, Xyloth protested. They will strike during daylight when they're most comfortable. Exactly, Dr. Chen interjected. They'll arrive at dawn on this side of the planet, but Earth rotates, Commander. In 12 hours, half our world will be in complete darkness. Realization dawned on Xyloth slowly. You cannot mean to engage them at night? That's precisely what we mean, Hayes confirmed. The Krell will establish orbit over Europe and Asia during morning hours. They'll expect resistance then. Instead, we'll evacuate those areas and offer only token defense. Let them think we're weak, disorganized. And then, Xyloth asked, though he was beginning to understand. And then the planet rotates and night falls over the invasion zone. While they're dealing with their fear of darkness, while their combat effectiveness is compromised, we strike. Colonel Mitchell brought up tactical displays. We've positioned our most advanced forces in the Americas and Pacific regions. As night moves across the planet, we'll launch coordinated strikes from the darkness. Stealth aircraft, submarines, special operations teams, all operating in conditions where we have every advantage and they have none. Xyloth stared at the humans in disbelief. You would weaponize darkness itself? We weaponize everything, Hayes said simply. That's what humans do. We take what others fear and we master it. The ocean depths, the highest mountains, radiation, disease, vacuum, and yes, darkness. We don't just survive in the dark, Commander. We've learned to own it. The Luminary delegation stood in stunned silence. What kind of species looked at the terror of darkness and decided to make it a weapon? What kind of beings were comfortable enough in the void to use it as cover for warfare? There's something you should understand about humans, Dr. Chen said quietly. For millions of years, we were prey animals. We were hunted by things with better senses, stronger bodies, sharper claws. We survived by becoming smarter, more adaptable, more willing to use any advantage we could find. Darkness? To our ancestors, darkness was when the predators came. So we learned to become the predators that hunt in darkness. We made the night ours. Hayes nodded. The Krell expect us to cower in fear when night comes, just as they would. Instead, they'll find that they're the ones who should be afraid. Because when darkness falls on Earth, humanity doesn't hide. We hunt. Xyloth felt a chill run through his luminescent body. He had thought the humans were potential allies, perhaps friends. He had seen them as civilized beings who built beautiful cities and spoke of peace and cooperation. But now he saw the truth beneath that civilized veneer. Humanity had clawed its way to the top of their world's food chain by being more dangerous than anything that threatened them. And they had never forgotten those survival instincts. Will you participate in the battle? Hayes asked. Your ship and crew could provide valuable support, though I understand if you prefer to remain at a safe distance. Xyloth straightened, his pride stung. The Luminari are not cowards, General. We will fight, though I confess, your battle plan terrifies me almost as much as the Krell do. Hayes laughed, a sharp bark of sound. Good, it should. Because if this works, if we send the Krell running with their tails between their legs, every species in this sector will learn an important lesson. What lesson is that? Preth asked. That Earth has teeth, Hayes said softly, and we bite hardest in the dark. The hours before the Krell arrival were spent in preparation. Xyloth coordinated with human commanders, positioning the Celestial Dawn to provide sensor support and limited orbital fire. His crew was terrified, not just of the coming battle, but of the fact that much of it would occur during the Earth's night cycle. But they were professionals, and they would do their duty. As dawn broke over Geneva, the Krell fleet appeared in the sky. Their ships were massive, brutal things, built for intimidation and destruction. They achieved orbit over Europe and immediately began broadcasting their demands for surrender. General Hayes, broadcasting from the command center, responded personally. This is General Patricia Hayes of the United Earth Defense Coalition. Your presence here is an act of war. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Krell commander appeared on screen, a reptilian being covered in thick scales. Humans are in no position to make threats. Your primitive world will be conquered. Submit now, and some of you may survive as labor. Hayes smiled that predator's smile again. I'll take that as a declaration of war then. See you after dark. The Krell commander looked confused by the response, but he wasted no time ordering his forces to attack. Bombardment began, targeting major cities and military installations. The human defenders fought back, but their resistance seemed weak, disorganized. Aircraft were shot down, ground forces retreated, cities burned. Xyloth watched from the command center, his heart heavy. It looked like a massacre. The humans seemed to be losing badly. General, he said urgently, perhaps you should reconsider your strategy. The Krell are causing massive damage. The cities are evacuated, Hayes replied calmly. Infrastructure can be rebuilt. Let them think they're winning. Let them commit fully to the invasion. As the day wore on, the Krell landed ground forces in Europe and Asia. Their troops moved through the streets of abandoned cities, meeting only sporadic resistance. By late afternoon, the Krell commander was broadcasting victory messages. And then the sun began to set. Xyloth watched the tactical displays as the Terminator line, the boundary between day and night, moved across the planet's surface. He could see the Krell forces beginning to react, their movements becoming more erratic as shadows lengthened. All units, this is command, Hayes spoke into the communications network. The night is yours. Execute Operation Darkness Falls. What happened next would haunt Xyloth for the rest of his life, though he would later admit it was the most impressive display of tactical warfare he had ever witnessed. As darkness fell over the invasion zones, humanity revealed its true nature. Stealth aircraft, invisible to sensors, and silent as death, swept over Krell positions and unleashed precision strikes. The invaders, their vision impaired by darkness and their nerves frayed, fired wildly at shadows and hit nothing. Human special forces, equipped with night vision technology and thermal imaging, moved through the dark like ghosts, eliminating Krell troops who huddled together in pools of artificial light, effectively marking themselves as targets. In orbit, the Celestial Dawn's sensors showed the Krell fleet scrambling in confusion. Their ships were designed for battles in full light, their sensor systems optimized for bright conditions. Now, on the dark side of Earth, human submarines launched missiles from the ocean depths. Stealth ships, painted black and running silent, appeared from nowhere to strike and disappear back into the darkness. The Krell troops on the ground fared even worse. Xyloth could hear their panicked communications as darkness drove them to the edge of madness. They saw humans everywhere and nowhere. Every shadow held death. Their weapons' fire lit up the night, revealing their positions while their enemies remained invisible. "Target the lights," came the order to human forces. Snipers took out the portable illumination units the Krell had deployed. Engineers cut power to occupied buildings, plunging them into darkness. The invaders, desperate for visibility, clustered around their remaining light sources, making themselves easy targets for artillery and airstrikes. One Krell commander broadcast a desperate plea. "The darkness attacks. The night itself is alive with enemies. We cannot see. We cannot fight. They are everywhere." In orbit, the Krell fleet attempted to regroup, but human forces struck relentlessly. Railgun platforms hidden on the dark side of the moon fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Particle beam weapons installed on satellites lanced through the night. The Krell ships, designed to intimidate and overwhelm, found themselves blind and vulnerable. By midnight, the Krell commander who had so confidently demanded surrender hours before was broadcasting his own plea. "We withdraw. Earth is yours. The Dominion will not return." "Not good enough," Hayes replied coldly. "You attacked our world. You killed our people. You don't get to just leave. The hunt continued through the night. Human forces, coordinating through advanced communications and guided by superior sensor technology, systematically eliminated or captured every Krell unit on the planet. In orbit, the Krell fleet tried to flee, but human ships pursued them to the edge of the solar system, making sure they carried the message home. When dawn broke over Europe again, the Krell presence on Earth had been completely eradicated. The invasion force that had seemed so unstoppable in daylight had been utterly destroyed in the darkness. Xyloth stood in the command center, his luminescence dim with exhaustion and shock. The humans around him were celebrating, but quietly, professionally. They had done this before, he realized, not on this scale perhaps, but humanity had a long history of using darkness as a weapon against their enemies. I don't understand, Xyloth admitted to Dr. Chen. How can you be so comfortable in the darkness? How can you function without fear? The doctor considered the question. We do feel fear, Commander. We're not fearless. But we learned long ago that fear is just a feeling. It doesn't have to control us. Our ancestors faced terrors in the night, yes, but they also learned that darkness could be a shield, a cloak, a weapon. We adapted. We evolved. We made the darkness serve us instead of fearing it. General Hayes approached, looking tired but satisfied. The Krell fleet has retreated beyond our system. Their ground forces are either eliminated or captured. Earth is secure. An impressive victory, Xyloth said, and he meant it. I have never seen anything like this. The Luminari will certainly wish to maintain our alliance with Earth. Hayes smiled, a genuine expression this time, not the Predator's grin from before. We'd like that too, Commander, though I suspect after today, the nature of that alliance might be a bit different than originally planned. How so? Well, Hayes said thoughtfully, we were going to offer you advanced energy technology and medical knowledge. Now you know what we're really good at. I imagine your people will want us as military allies, protection against threats like the Krell. Xyloth couldn't argue with that logic. The Luminari had ships and technology, but they lacked the warrior spirit he had witnessed in humanity. They would indeed sleep better knowing Earth stood with them. There is one thing I must know, Xyloth said. If we had proven to be enemies instead of friends, if the Luminari had come to conquer Earth instead of seeking alliance, would you have used these tactics against us? Hayes met his gaze steadily. Commander, we use every advantage we have against any threat, regardless of their species. But here's the thing. You came in peace. You were honest and respectful. That matters to us. We don't want to be the monsters in the dark. We want to be good neighbors, reliable allies, peaceful partners. But if someone threatens us or those we've sworn to protect, then yes, we become the monsters. We become the thing that hunts in the darkness, and we will not stop until the threat is eliminated. It was a chilling answer, but an honest one. Xyloth appreciated that honesty. Better to know exactly what kind of beings humanity was than to be deceived by their civilized appearance. The celestial dawn departed Earth 3 days later, carrying not just a treaty of alliance, but a comprehensive report on humanity's capabilities. Xyloth knew this information would change how the Luminari viewed their new friends. Earth would become valuable, yes, but also slightly feared. Any species that could weaponize darkness itself was not to be taken lightly. As his ship accelerated toward the stars, Xyloth looked back at the blue planet. Half of it was cloaked in shadow, the natural darkness that came with planetary rotation. But now he understood that darkness differently. It wasn't just the absence of light. For humanity, it was a tool, a weapon, and most impressively, a hunting ground. He thought about the message the Krell would carry back to their dominion. They would speak of Earth with terror, describe how the darkness came alive with human warriors, how the night itself seemed to fight against them. That message would spread to other species, other potential threats, and they would think twice before approaching Earth with hostile intent. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest weapon, Xyloth mused, not the darkness itself, but the reputation they had earned by mastering it. Fear was a powerful deterrent. The Luminari inspired respect through their technology and diplomacy. The Krell inspired fear through brute force and cruelty. But humanity had found a different path. They inspired a very specific kind of fear, a primal terror coded into the genes of any species that had ever been prey. They had made themselves the apex predators of the night, and now everyone would know it. Navigator Preth approached him on the bridge. "Commander, the crew is requesting permission to dim the ship's internal lighting. They wish to sleep, and after our time on Earth, some find the constant brightness unsettling. They say they've grown accustomed to the cycle of light and dark." Xyloth considered this unexpected development. "Permission granted. Establish a day-night cycle similar to Earth's. Perhaps it's time the Luminary learn to be more comfortable with darkness. If we're to be allies with humanity, we should understand their world better." As the ship's lights dimmed for the first time in Luminary spacefaring history, Xyloth felt a moment of instinctive fear. But he pushed through it, remembering the humans who had fought and won in conditions that would paralyze his own people. If they could master darkness, perhaps the Luminary could at least learn to tolerate it. The stars shone brighter in the dim bridge, and Xyloth found it beautiful in a way he'd never noticed before. Maybe there was something to be gained from embracing the shadows instead of always fleeing from them. One thing was certain, Xyloth thought as he settled into his command chair. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Earth was not a world to be trifled with. The humans had proven they could turn their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. They had shown that adaptation and determination could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. And if any other species was foolish enough to threaten Earth, they would discover what the Krell had learned. When darkness falls on humanity's homeworld, the monsters come out to play. But the real monsters weren't hiding in the shadows. They were the ones who owned those shadows, who moved through them with lethal grace, who had transformed the terror of night into a weapon of war. The Luminary would be proud to call such beings allies, and very, very grateful they would never have to face them as enemies. Because facing humanity in the dark, that was a nightmare no species wanted to experience. The Krell had learned that lesson at a terrible cost. With luck, their fate would serve as a warning to others. As the celestial dawn jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind, Xyloth composed his report to the Luminary High Council. He would tell them everything about their new allies, their technology, their culture, their values. But most importantly, he would tell them about the night, and how humanity had made it their domain. The humans had a saying, he remembered, one that Dr. Chen had shared during their final meeting: "We are the reason you should fear the dark." At the time, Xyloth had thought it was merely bravado. Now he knew better. It was a simple statement of fact, a warning to those who would threaten Earth, a promise to those who would stand with them. Xyloth pulled up the video footage he had recorded of the battle, watching once more as human forces moved through the darkness with terrifying efficiency. Every species in the galaxy had strengths. The Luminari had their technology, the Krell had their brutality, the Valorans had their psychic abilities. But humanity? Humanity had something unique. They had taken their evolutionary fears and conquered them. They had looked at the darkness that terrified them and declared it their territory. They had spent millions of years being hunted in the night and emerged as the ultimate nocturnal predators. That, Xyloth realized, was the essence of what made humanity so formidable. They didn't just survive challenges, they dominated them. They didn't just overcome obstacles, they weaponized them. Give a human a disadvantage, and they would find a way to turn it into an advantage. Present them with an impossible situation, and they would rewrite the rules until it became possible. The Krell had brought overwhelming force, superior numbers, and advanced weaponry. By all conventional military doctrine, they should have won. But humanity had brought something more powerful. They had brought adaptability, determination, and intimate knowledge of their home terrain. They had fought on their terms, in their element, and they had been absolutely merciless in their effectiveness. As Xyloth finalized his report, he included a personal note to the High Council. Earth's primary defensive asset is not their technology or their numbers. It is their mindset. They are a species of survivors who became conquerors, of prey animals who became predators, of beings who feared the dark and made it their kingdom. Any species considering hostile action against Earth should remember the fate of the Krell. The humans have a saying that summarizes their nature perfectly: speak softly and carry a big stick. They will be your friend if you offer friendship, but they will be your nightmare if you offer violence. Choose wisely. The message sent, Xyloth allowed himself to rest as the ship traveled through hyperspace. Around him, his crew adapted to the new day-night cycle, learning to sleep in dimness and work in light. It was a small thing, but it represented a significant shift for the Luminary. They were learning from their human allies, becoming more versatile, more adaptable. Perhaps that was the greatest gift humanity could offer the galaxy, Xyloth thought as sleep finally claimed him. Not their weapons or their technology, but their example. The example of a species that refused to be limited by their biology, their environment, or their circumstances. A species that looked at every challenge and asked not, "Can we overcome this?" but, "How can we use this to our advantage?" The stars continued their eternal dance as the celestial dawn raced toward Luxara, carrying news of Earth and its remarkable inhabitants. Behind them, on the blue planet that would soon be known throughout the galaxy, humanity continued its ancient rhythm. Day and night, light and darkness, each cycle bringing new challenges and new opportunities. And through it all, humans remained what they had always been, what they would always be: survivors, adapters, and when necessary, the most dangerous predators the darkness had ever known. The Krell had learned this lesson. The Luminary had witnessed it. And soon, every civilization in the sector would know the truth. Earth was protected not by walls or shields, but by the indomitable will of a species that had spent their entire evolutionary history turning weaknesses into strengths, obstacles into opportunities, and fears into weapons. Any who doubted this were welcome to test it, to bring their fleets and their armies and their threats to humanity's doorstep. But they should remember to bring a light, because when darkness falls on Earth, the monsters come out, and those monsters are called humans.